make our fruit tarts, we're going to start by making the pastry. Now you can do this the day before, but it does need resting time. So you are going to have to sort of plan it in. It can be done an hour before you want to make it. It can be done the day before you want to make it, but it does need resting time. So we're going to start with plain flour and icing sugar. And that's going to go into the food processor. You can, of course, make this by hand, rubbing it in, just like we've made pastry many, many times before in school. But I'm going to use the food processor because it's quicker, it's easier, and it keeps everything really cold. Remember, we want everything as cold as possible when we're making pastry. So I'm just going to mix this together. And to that, I'm going to add the butter. Now it needs to be butter, not spread, because remember, spread is oil that's had hydrogens added to it. So we want butter because it has a higher plasticity. It's going to be harder. And what we want to do is we want to wrap every bit of flour in butter to act as a protective layer so the gluten can't develop. The gluten can't stretch out. It's trapped inside of that fat. So this is cold, cold, cold from the fridge. And we're just going to pulse it. Okay, and check the size. So the butter started to be chopped up. That's still a little large. So we're going to keep going, but it's still cold. And that's what we want. We want it to be as cold as possible. We don't want to melt the butter. Because if we melt the butter, we break that protective layer. Nearly there. Our bits of butter. There's still the odd large bit of butter, but most of it's quite small now. By pulsing it, we bring it up and then we let it drop down. We bring it up and we let it drop down. Rather than if you just let it go, it tends to just work on the same bit over and over again. This is starting. This is well and truly done now. I can see. So it should look like sand. When we're rubbing in, we always say breadcrumbs, but this manages to get it finer, so it looks like sand on a tropical beach. Should be nice. It's not very tropical today. We're going to bind it together with egg. So we're making an enriched pastry. The fat in the egg is going to make an enriched pastry. Might be one egg and a little splash of milk, or it might just be one egg. I'm going to add it gradually because, of course, it might need all the egg, it might not. And you can always add liquid, but you can't take it out. We don't want to work it. We want it to be, well, we don't want to work it much. We want it to just come together. So again, we're going to pulse. A little bit, little bit, little bit, until it comes together. So. Starting to lump together a little bit more. That'll do. So that's now about where we want it. So when you squish it, it comes together to form softish dough. But look, I've still got all of that egg left. Don't need it. This you need to tip out onto some cling film. Very gently with your hands form it into a disc and then put it in the fridge. So it should look like this. Here's one I made earlier, like a Blue Peter presenter. But remember, you want to touch it as little as possible. When we do not need pastry. When we're kneading bread, we're trying to develop the gluten, we're trying to stretch it. With pastry, we're trying to do the exact opposite. We want to keep it short. We want the gluten to stay really, really short, trapped inside of that fat, and the fat to stay solid, as hard as possible. Okay, so this needs to go in the fridge for at least half an hour. All right, see you in a bit. So the pastry's rested. It's a lot firmer because the fat's re-solidified. If you have left this overnight, you probably want to leave it out at room temperature for 10 minutes. But if you made it half an hour before, it'll be absolutely fine to roll out. Little bit of flour. Little bit of flour over the top. And we're going to start by going 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to turn, picking up the flour. 1, 2, 3. Just to get us started. Always making sure we've got flour underneath. As normal, we're going to start at one end. We're just going to use the weight of the rolling pin and our hands, and we're going to go forward and back. Then we're going to turn, making sure there's flour underneath, forward and back. Remember, don't push hard. We're not trying to stretch the dough, we're trying to very, very gently push it out. What we're aiming to do is not have the dough, the pastry, shrink when it's cooked. If you start to try and stretch it, when it cooks, it will shrink. So we're just gently, gently, gently slowly working it out. So 1, 2, turn. 1, 2, turn. And if it gets stuck on your rolling pin, you need to clean the rolling pin off. Okay, I'm going to call it there. My mother would tell me this is too thick, but it's absolutely fine. Do you see how when I'm going underneath it, I'm sort of fanning my hands out? So I'm just fanning my hands out, moving and making sure that there is flour underneath. And now I want to make sure there's a decent bit of flour over the top, because I'm going to pick the dough up. I've got a tin here. This is a loose bottom fluted tin. And I'm sure that this will go up over the edges. You should probably measure. I've used this tin a million times, I know what size I'm looking for. You put your rolling pin, put your rolling pin 2/3 of the way up, flip the pastry over, roll it back, and then lift it on, roll, 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 a bit like that. And again, now we're gonna have to move a bit quick, but we don't want to stretch the pastry. So we're gonna lift it up, 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 lift it up. And we're not pushing it in, we're sort of gently guiding it into the edges. If it gets a bit big and a bit heavy, we're just going to use some scissors to trim off any excess. You do want it to overhang though. sometimes the weight causes it to, like there, you can see it starting to rip. So we're just going to take some of the weight off. Because of the sugar, it's a very delicate pastry. It's not very forgiving. So gently push it into the edges. You need to make sure you've got short nails to do this. It looks a little thin there. I can actually see the metal through it, so I'm just going to put a little patch on. No one will know. So right up into the edges. Being super gentle. Okay, I'm going to take a fork. I'm going to make holes going right the way through to the base. This means if there's an air bubble when it cooks, instead of, because the hot air rises, it will push up the pastry dough and form like a dome. And we don't want that. We want it to be nice and flat. So we're going to make these holes. So if there is any air trapped as it's cooking, it can escape through the holes. You have to save it. Sometimes people make big, like biggish holes like that. And then you have to save a little bit of dough to plug them in sort of halfway through. I tend to find this just works fine. Cover this in cling film and let it chill again for another half an hour. That's all in the fridge chilling. We're going to move on to the filling now. So we're going to make a crème pâte, which is a very thick custard. The Americans call it pastry cream. We're going to, so because it's a custard, it's got eggs and it's got dairy. We're going to start by taking our egg yolks and caster sugar. And we're going to whisk them until they are pale. So it doesn't have to be perfect. I'll whisk it a bit more in a minute. Got whole milk here, so blue top milk. And to that, I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla bean paste. You can use a vanilla pod to scrape the beans out. The seeds out. And then just put the actual pod in as well. And that will give you the best flavour. But I wouldn't use extract. you'll lose most of the flavour. You want either the paste or a proper vanilla bean. Half of the vanilla bean will probably do. And we want to bring that to a simmer. Okay. Whisk this up a bit more. Turn the lights on, it's a bit dark. I bet. A little bit. There we go, it's going nice and pale. See? Going thick and pale. That's what we're looking for. Right, to this now, I'm going to add a mixture of plain flour and corn flour, which is what's going to make our custard go really, really thick. It's a bit of vanilla bean paste on my fingers there. And we're going to whisk that into, oh, hello. I am messy. There we go. Now we just need this to come to a simmer. It's getting close. Have a tidy up while it's waiting. Oh, I'll stick a pinch of salt in actually. A little bit of salt. One other thing I've done in preparation is that I've cleared out my sink and I have run a sink of very cold water, because once we've made this, we want it to cool down as quickly as possible. You can see it all moving. There we go. You can hear it starting to simmer. Definitely do not want it to boil. Okay, so I'm going to turn it off. See the steam coming off. Just give it a few seconds. And then we're going to temper the eggs. So we're going to pour a little bit of the hot milk in, just gradually bring the temperature of the eggs up, because if we just threw it all together, we'd end up with scrambled eggs. Make sure it's nice and loose. A little bit goes in. Whisk. Now I'm going to add this all back into the pan. So I'm done with this bowl and I need to get a clean bowl out ready, which I have predictably already done. Okay, let's move you over a little bit so you can see better. There we go. So now we need to turn the heat back on, but put it on quite low, and we need to keep this moving. So the egg yolks, the protein in the egg yolks is going to coagulate and they're going to go thick, and also the starch that's in the corn flour and the plain flour, that's going to gelatinize. They're going to go bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, swell up, absorbing the milk until they burst, create that network and make it go nice and thick. We have to keep it moving though, because remember the heat is coming from the bottom. So anything that's on the bottom, all the egg and all the flour that's on the bottom, is going to cook way quicker than the stuff that's on the top. And if we let that happen, it'll go all lumpy and gross. You can sieve it, not the end of the world, but we want to try and avoid it. Only problem with using a balloon is because you can't get right into the edges, and it's already started going in the edges. I might swap over to my thinner one, my smaller one. We're going to bring this to a boil. See how thick it's gone? And it's starting to boil. We need it to boil for a minute to cook off the flour, otherwise it will taste like raw flour, which is disgusting. That'll probably do. Clean bowl. Sorry guys, that was really boring for you, wasn't it? But the cling film goes directly on top of the custard, so not over the top of the bowl, but just on top of the custard. I'm now going to put this into the sink of water so that the water comes up higher than the custard, and all the heat from the custard is going to go transfer into the water. It's going to cool down very quick. Right guys, so it's time to blind bake the base. So this has been chilling in the fridge and it's now gone really hard again, which is exactly what we want. I don't actually use baking beans at home. I tend to just use rice. So what you want to do is get some greaseproof paper and really, you do want to get some greaseproof paper, but start by preheating your oven. Fan about 180, normal oven about 200. Anyway, I preheated it about 20 minutes ago and put a heavy baking sheet in there to really, really heat it up, because we're going to put this directly onto the baking sheet and the heat's going to go strictly to the base. But back to our greaseproof. So really, 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 really crunch up your greaseproof paper. Then place it into the base, trying to make sure it goes right up to the edges. I just use rice because I find it fits into all the corners a lot better. So, this is rice that I've used before. Probably enough. Making sure it goes right up to the edges. To weight everything down. This is too much though. I don't want all of that there. What's that doing with scissors? You need some overhang to then lift it out later. But for now, you want to be able to actually see the pastry. We'll trim this off when it comes out the oven. Okay, a bit like that. The plate's not going in the oven, obviously. But I'm going to go put this onto that baking sheet that I've had heating up in the oven. Okay, so it's been in the oven for 20 minutes. I'm just going to lift off the rice. And you can see around the edge, cooked, but the bottom still needs to dry out a little bit. So my top tip for doing this is if this bit's looking a bit brown, or as brown as you reckon it needs to be, take some tin foil and just gently go around the edge like that. Not pressing it into the pastry, otherwise you'll dent it. And like that. And then this needs to go back in the oven for another 5 minutes to let that middle bit dry out. So it's not actually been 5 minutes, it's been closer to 8 or 9. This is about done. We've got the slightest bit of colour on the top. Once it comes out, you need to move quite quickly because we're going to trim the edge. So I've sharpened this knife. I'm just going to shave it around the top. This is a clean tea towel that I'm using to help hold it in place because it is hot. We're just going to shave. You will need to sharpen the knife, get it nice and sharp. But you'll see as I go round, the cooler it gets, the harder it is to do. There we go. That is now done. We just need it to cool down. So this needs to go completely cold. Filling needs to go completely cold, and then it's just an assembly job. Right guys, I want to talk to you quite seriously about something for a minute. What I just made, the big one, the big tart, is perfect for your family, but it's absolutely no good for your exam. It's way too big. And to get a decent slice out of it is going to be quite tricky. So if you are going to make something like this in your exam, you need to do a single size portion. We need to be thinking about presentation all the time. So I've got 3 different options here. This one was done in a muffin tin, and you can see it. It isn't great. This one was done in one of these rings. And then this one was done in a smaller version of what I did the big tart in, a loose bottom fluted tin. This, from a side angle, and once I've filled it and everything, will look the best. But these are quite pricey. These you can get off Amazon, I think for about £4 for about £8, something like that. And we do have some in school. You want to go for the deep ones though. But this is what you want to do. Okay? You don't want to do a massive tart like that or a massive quiche like that. You'd want to do an individual portion. Like this one. You can do this, but I strongly recommend you don't because it doesn't look very good. It never looks really good. And remember, there are as many marks for presentation as there are for skills. So I'd recommend not doing this because it looks a bit messy. And I've never seen a student do it any better than that. Okay, so these rings, they're absolutely brilliant. Recommend those. These, they're fantastic. Use these. All good options. Not a good option. Don't use a muffin tin. And a bun tin would be too shallow. Okay. Okay guys, so everything's cooled down now. We've got our pastry case. You can see here. It's cooked all the way down to the bottom. It's nice and crisp and it's holding its shape. Not too crisp though, you don't want it brittle. Okay, so that is now completely cold. I've got my crème pâte out of the fridge, and now all I have to do is assemble it. You look gloopy. You want it this firm so that you can then cut it. Just using an offset spatula. You can heat it up, and that makes the whole thing a bit easier to work with. The spatula, I mean. It's not a spatula at all, is it? It's a palette knife. For God's sake. In fact, I think I will. There we go. A little bit easier. You can just use boiling water. Use strawberries. I've got some raspberries and blueberries to go on mine. I should think of some sort of pretty design to do, really. Something like this. I hate this. This looks awful. Take it off. Take it off. Maybe that one. There we go. I'll do. A little bit like that.